Hi, everybody. It's Susan again, and this time I want to talk to you about all the things that are happening this week. I'm actually recording this on the 2nd of February, so we still actually have this incredible conjunction, the triple conjunction of Venus with the North Node and Neptune. And technically, also, when Jupiter is stationing direct, Venus is still very much conjunct the North Node and Neptune as well, just in a new sign, which kind of breaks it up a little bit. But there's a lot of really, I think, very helpful, auspicious things that are going on here. I did promise a separate video of Uranus stationing direct. I missed that opportunity. It's been quite a week. My dog was ill and I was kind of on standby. She's fine now. But there was a moment. Um, and so, really, what it is this is going to be everything. Everything, everywhere, all at once in this video. So we're going to look at Venus in Aries. We're going to look at the Uranus station, which is already really it's moved one arc minute of a degree, and then we're also looking at the Jupiter station, which happens the same day that Venus ingresses Aries. So I just want to remind you that I am a consulting astrologer. So what I'm doing here is just kind of letting you know that I exist, and sharing some information and hopefully some things that can help you personally. But I do see people individually. I often get that question in the comments, and my details are in the box below this video, the description box. And you'll find my link to my website. So please do, if you want to have a session with me, reach out to me or book it directly from my website. Um, yeah, what else do I need to say? And also, just so you know, I am an astrologer, obviously. I've been doing this since Uranus crossed into my 10th house. So Uranus had to cross over Pisces at the last degree, which is my Mercury, which is probably also why I haven't been able to do videos this week, because I've had the North Node, Neptune, and Venus on my natal Mercury. And at that point, when Uranus crossed there, I actually started to realize I could actually do this as a job, as part of what I do. Up until that time, I had been working as a yoga therapist, yoga teacher, and an Ayurvedic counselor, which is something I still do. And I just wanted to point that out because somebody in the comments a while back said that when I was talking about my Ayurvedic cleanse, that I was out of my wheelhouse. So if you want to know my wheelhouse, go check my website, because it's more than just these videos that I put up here. So I do try and bring as much of my past experience of self into these videos. I don't really do the mundane stuff anymore because I'm really sensing that for myself personally, but also for all of us, we need to focus on ourselves and move through these exciting times, these changing times in such a way that we can really grow and not get into all of the details of what's happening so-called out there, which are pretty gross, and um, they're not going to really change by us knowing about them. So that's the sad truth of it. So what we can change is ourselves, and that's what I want to put my focus on here. Now, what I've done is I've set the chart for the Jupiter station, but I'm going to talk about all of these different placements. And as it happens, very kindly, the stars have aligned to put Aries on the ascendant at the moment that Jupiter is stationing. And so we have a really easy start to this sequence. I'm going to start with Aries and move through each sign. And we're going to go house by house as well at what is going on in this extraordinary week. And for all of you, for everyone listening, please follow for your sun, your ascendant, and your moon sign. I've done a separate video to explain why, and I won't keep going through that each time here. And you can meet me halfway by reading things in the description box. And I always, for every video I post, include that information. What does the sun represent? What does the moon represent? What does the ascendant represent? And they're all three quite significant. Of course, the entire chart needs to be taken into consideration, but we're only able to do a very general session here. So just so you know, always look for all three. If you don't know all three, at the very least, you can learn from your sun. And right, here we go. So in this chart, we have 9:41 a.m. I always work with universal time. So 9:41 a.m. universal time on the 4th of February, we have Jupiter stationing direct. And it stationed retrograde on the 9th of October. This is only hours after Venus herself is ingressing Aries. That's not an uncommon thing, except that Venus is moving very slowly at this point, and she's going to take from now until the 1st of March to reach 10 degrees and 50 minutes of Aries. So there's quite a lot of churning around Venus in Aries at this point. And so when we have this energy, let's say, of Venus coming to a slow pace, we have Uranus very, very slow because it's only just on the 30th of January, station direct, very, very slow for the moment. And then Jupiter also very, very slow for the moment. It's going to be the better part of February that these planets are simply kind of in this zone where we're describing today. So pay attention to these degree points or these places in your own chart and notice that there's going to be some, because even Mars, I didn't mention yet Mars, but Mars is also going very slowly at this time because Mars is preparing to station on the 24th of February, only 2 degrees away from where it is now. So it's going to take over 3 weeks to get to 2 degrees retrograde from where it is now. And all of that time, it's also building into a trine with Saturn. So although it's not really going to feel like things are going to be able to move forward fully compared to, let's say, a month ago or 2 months ago, you will definitely have a sense that things can start to move forward now, that things can start to feel like there's momentum building. And I really see this particular chart in terms of the Jupiter station. I find it really, really lovely because we have an exalted moon also. And when there's a timing for events or when there's something that's inciting a new series or a new change or a new event or something, we want to have the moon in really happy condition. So here we have the moon in Taurus, and that's quite solid. She is ruled by a Venus in Aries, which is not as comfortable. Again, just only hours before Venus was at the final degree, final minute of Pisces, final minute of the zodiac. And Mars itself is not fully comfortable either in the sign of the moon. But because that we're going to take what we can get in this phase, we're going to take what we can get and we're going to use it, meaning that we have a certain amount of emotional stability. But what are we stable around? What are we looking at will depend on each sign, or rather each house that I talk about. And then we also factor in the square that the moon has just completed from Pluto. So we're looking at something that has been integrated already. It's moving out of the square from Pluto. There's something we've understood emotionally. Moon square Pluto digs up a lot of unconscious things or fears, stresses around events. And often, if you have moon square Pluto in your natal chart, it means that the mother at the time of the birth or around the time of the pregnancy was going through some really serious, potentially physical or spiritual or mental issues that she had to deal with. Like in the case of my son has Pluto, which is squaring the moon squaring Pluto, and I nearly died after he was born. And so these kinds of things in a natal chart can have a different significance when we're looking at this in terms of our process currently, our personal growth and our collective growth. We can see that there's something that we can learn from in terms of churning the mind, the emotional body, and what we need to change. And that's all that the outer planets are trying to describe at this point too, Pluto, as well as Uranus and now Jupiter. So it's really only Mars at this point that is retrograding, but it's still so slow that we're going to feel that as all the other planets are still so slow that we're going to feel that as things on the verge of changing. So not quite yet. There's a not quite yet kind of feeling around that. And then this change will also kind of flip over. There's only about a 6 or 7 day period at the end of February where everything is moving direct. And then Venus stations retrograde on the 1st of March, and then Mercury stations retrograde on the 15th of March, which is the day after the eclipse, the 14th. I'll come back and talk about those things later on. But anyway, all of this to say that it's a good time to get things ready, put all of your little ducks in a row, get things in motion so that when things start to pick up, you're ready. You're going to deal with this. And especially through February, use this time consciously, go back over all the things, and I'll give you some of the dates as we talk about the sign by sign. Go back over all of those different things that need to be improved on or corrected, or that you have changed your mind about, and prepare yourself for March so that you can move into the new opportunities that come in March, even if Venus is retrograde, and even if Mercury is retrograde, and even if there are eclipses, there will be opportunities in all of that. And it's coming from what you've understood about these weeks that we've just gone through and the weeks that will come through February. Right. So as we all warned you, I think most astrologers have warned everybody that the first 5 or 6 months of 2025 are quite intense, quite chaotic. This is what we mean by intense. It's that there's something that we need to recognize if we want to go through this consciously without feeling like we're being bounced around by outer events. Go through this consciously with a sense of, I'm going to grow through this. I have a determination to grow. And that determination is really solid with that Mars in a trine to Saturn. It's building to a trine. So that's really helpful, even if Mars is retrograde, even if Mars is not so happy. They do work together really, really nicely. We also have Mercury. Now it has completed a trine. It was in a really lovely supporting role now, and in a trine to Jupiter, which it's ruling, because Jupiter itself is in Gemini. If you want to know more about the Jupiter in Gemini characters, I did actually a video separately about that, so I won't focus too much about that meaning, but it just is basically a good support for this moment. It's really helpful. And then we also have this building square that is actually, it's perfected already, this square from Mars to Chiron. So that was even just hours before it was building. Also at the time that Venus was ingressing in Chiron, it would have been perfecting. And so this is also a time for healing, that Mars squaring Chiron, which will happen again as Mars goes direct and then moves through those degrees again in when will that be? In early March, probably first half of March. So that square, which is going to hold even within 3 degrees, because the square is quite impactful, especially because Mars is ruling Chiron. That intensity of the square actually is February, March, and even into April. And so there's something here, or maybe not into April, maybe let's say the first week of April, it'll fade, it'll be done. But this movement of the square here, between Mars and Chiron, is an opportunity for us to understand where we need to overcome some insecurities around ourselves, overcome some kind of feeling of personal wounding or personal fragility. Mars squaring Chiron says, okay, now it's time to learn how to take care of yourself, how to express anger, how to express, assert yourself, not necessarily having to be aggressive, but how to express what you need to express in a way that's kind of like standing up for yourself. And that's that Mars quality in Cancer. And again, it's not about going out and yelling at everybody around you. This is never, ever going to be the reason or the solution for personal growth. But it's really about this opportunity to internalize that power, and to not, like the Who song, don't be fooled again, and go through that phase of understanding, where was I letting myself down? And I think this is one of the things that Mars in Cancer can help us a lot with. Where did I let myself down? Where was I not caring for myself? Where was I not in the role of doing the right thing by me, my people, my family, etc.? Right. I think that's enough for the general sense of things. And I have done separate videos also on the Neptune, Venus, and North Node. It's been, and it still is, as I'm talking to you, a really beautiful time. I hope you have also had some interesting encounters. I definitely have some really fabulous connections with people, not in any particularly dramatic way, but in really harmonious ways, connecting with people that just felt like it was exactly what needed to happen in that moment for both individuals. So that's a really lovely way of expressing that. Coming together and also with a spiritual element, with an element of something that could be creative or spiritual. So I do hope that feels like that for you as well. And keep in mind, this is still going all the way through the week, and that encounters with people or things that you start to understand about yourself will still apply going forward. It's not like you're missing the boat. Venus is going to go back and forth over these placements, the North Node and Neptune, many, many times. So we're going to get 3 chances at this. And so each time you can also look forward to these kind of fated encounters or ways of reaching out into relationship that can bring you spiritual growth, that can bring you to a better place for yourself. Right, let's carry on now with Aries. So we've got Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising. And now Aries, of course, you now have Venus in your first house of self. That's always a lovely place to have Venus. It makes you feel good about yourself. And it's also a part of this longer journey that Venus is taking in the retrograde. And I've already done a video about Venus retrograding, so I won't really spend a lot of time there, except to say that she's going to be in your first house for many, many weeks to come. She will station at 10 degrees 50 minutes of Aries on the 1st of March, and then takes a long time to go backwards into Pisces. So you really have 2 or 3 months now of this Venus energy for you until she returns to Pisces at the end of, I think it's the end of April. Yeah, so you're really in a place of feeling good about yourself, but there may be something that you are learning also about this dynamic of relationships, your role in relationships, what you need in relationships. And this can also be something to do with work relationships as well as intimate ones, but it also tends to be what it is that you need, what you prefer, what you desire in relationships. Do watch that video that I did about the Venus retrograde, because there will be a lot more in terms of the insights around dates for that as well, because this is something that repeats every 8 years. So if you keep going back roughly to the early months of each year, 8 years back, so we're going back to 2017, and then 2009, 2001, 1993, and you go into those first 3-4 months of the year, you're going to find a resonance with this time. And then where we come to Uranus now stationing, or rather, kind of slowly moving out of its retrograde phase, where it started on the 1st of September, it's in your second house of money. And so what can happen is that there's this feeling now of whatever was disrupted or whatever felt a little insecure around money is going to be understood. And what you want to look at is what was going on from the middle of, I think it was the 15th of May. Was it the 15th of May? Hang on just a minute. Yeah, since May, we had Uranus at this degree, and it moved forward to 27 degrees. So it always moves forward 4 degrees, and then it moves backwards 8 or 9 degrees. So Uranus is it's a 1 step forward, 2 steps, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of planet, and on its side. So this energy of Uranus is something you've already experienced. So you go back to May, and from this point in time, from around mid-May until Uranus stationed at the beginning of September, that retrograde station was pulling back from 27 degrees to the point where it is now. So from September until beginning of February, that has been the focus. Now, Uranus is, 5 months of the year, it's retrograde. It's not an extraordinary thing, but it still impacts our life. And especially if those degree points, you could really give it to 29 degrees of, or really the last degree of Taurus, all the way back to, say, 21 or even, say, 20 degrees of Taurus. If you've got placements there, then this will have been even more significant for you. But at the very least, you have a message coming through those months from May through till the end of the summer, or let's say beginning of September. And so here you're looking at something that's starting again. You're learning from that, and you're trying to figure out how to go forward. What was changing? How did that change? And in the second house, it's really all about your values. It's about money and how you connect with money, the value you place on things, your possessions, or your abundance in any given way. It's also about your relations with your family, how your family supports you. So there may have also been a bit of a blip there, some kind of changing dynamic around that. And this is something that you can now move forward into. So Uranus is disrupting patterns for you, and it has been since 2018, since May 2018. So it's not new, but it's just this new degree segment. Now, when Uranus moves forward, it's going to clear all of the second house and go into your third house. And I'll do a separate video about Uranus in Gemini, because that's significant in and of itself. That only happens every 84 years. So that will be a first for almost everybody. listening to this video. And so when Uranus clears that, it'll be already the 7th of July. So we've got from this point until the 7th of July for Uranus to go for the last 7 degrees of Taurus through your house of money and resources. So it's a good time to reflect on all of those qualities of the second house. And then we have this Jupiter, which is the day that I'm referring to, especially the 4th, where both Venus ingresses Aries, your sign, and then Jupiter stations direct. And Jupiter going through your 3rd house is recovering its tracks since the 9th of October when it's stationed. So actually the time that I'm going to check my little notes here for all of the dates. So that's it. So from now, from the 4th of February through till the 30th of April, Jupiter is going to keep backtracking and going now forward over the retrograde cycle that it had from July 15th, or from the tracks that it made, let's say from July 15th till it stationed retrograde on the 9th. So just to clarify, from now until the 30th of April, till the end of April, Jupiter is covering old territory from mid-July until October 9th. So again, you want to kind of go back over these few months and see what was important. In this case, in the 3rd house, for you, that's about your local space, it's your neighborhood, it's your way of connecting with people, all kinds of exchanges, information exchanges or learning. Usually the learning is pragmatic, it's something practical, it's not something philosophical, but it's practical, pragmatic things. And also anything to do with siblings or connections with extended family in general, cousins, siblings, aunts, uncles, and things like that. And how that may have changed or what needed to be dealt with. And that Jupiter, of course, representing some kind of expansion, even when it's retrograde, it's still not unhelpful. It's just that when it moves forward, it tends to give you now the results. There'll be some kind of visible result based on what you've been working towards since the 9th of October. So we're looking again at a really long stretch of time. And those 4 months have hopefully been productive for you, because when Jupiter is retrograde, it's a great time to go over, all this opportunity to go back and reintegrate whatever the vision was, whatever the growth was, whatever the thing was. This might be a business, for example, or it might be something that has to do with connecting with people online, or with connecting with people through literal groups, like actual IRL groups. And especially so because Pluto's in your 11th house, where that becomes a big focus for you. Who do I hang out with? So really, really good time. Now, your ruler Mars is retrograde until the 24th. So just about 3 more weeks of this retrograde in your 4th house of home. And that can also put you in touch with your lineage, your family roots, let's say, the family of origin, or the roots the people you come from, the places and people you come through. And this can also be your literal home, your physical home. Where do I live? But it also can be your more emotional or psychological home. And so there may have been some disruption there. There may have been a need to change something, a need to take action that could be literally fixing things up, or it can be a need to take action based on the dynamics at home that need to be worked through. Now, I've also done a Mars retrograding in Cancer video, so refer to that for all those meanings, because it holds really steady until the 18th of April. I won't go through all of that now just to save time, but it is a really good time now to understand what needs to change. It does seem to connect you also with 12th house issues, since Mars is also trining Saturn, which is about these questions of perhaps our ancestry, or questions of things and people that are far away, things and people, or ideas as well. That can be your unconscious, or it can be your degree of faith. And so whatever has been disturbing your peace, maybe something that you are understanding in this phase, try to resolve it from the inside out. And then you'll find that when Mars goes direct, then things start to make sense. You can put things in their right place, let's say, just in time for Venus to go retrograde. I think that's it for Aries. So I think I've mentioned all those planets. So it's pretty, I find this time really rich in terms of our personal growth. I want February for everybody to be this opportunity to grow from the inside out, that allows you to see yourself in a way that is not vulnerable. You're not a victim to outer circumstances, and you're not, and don't get caught up in all those things either. Don't let yourself get distracted by the stuff of life, especially with Pluto in the 11th. You might be one of those that is getting caught up in politics or in all these sort of outer things. And you can just keep asking yourself, is this working for me? Especially with Pluto squared by the moon in the second house. Do I really need to yell my values from the rooftops, or can I just integrate them and walk my talk? This could also be a great meaning for the Mars retrograding back into that square with Chiron, which holds, like I said, for quite some time. So good luck with all that, Aries, and I will see you in the next video. So Taurus, this is a very big time for you because Uranus has stationed in your first house on the 30th of January, which will have perhaps more impact for you than many other signs. And as Uranus is changing direction, it's going really, really slowly. So you're not really going to feel this, especially as it's an outer planet, unless you have something that it's touching in your first house of Taurus, whether that be your ascendant or your sun or your moon, or even other personal planets that it's affecting. And this is something that you want to then react to or feel like, now I'm ready to do this thing. And that thing has been something that has been building since May. So many of you that would have been around your birthday when Uranus was first at this degree. And so that 23-degree Taurus, and you can give or take 2 degrees, maybe possibly 3 if we're going to be generous, but certainly 2 degrees on either side of that from May. That would have been a very significant time, and hot on the heels also of the Jupiter connection with Uranus in your first house. So that was the 20th of April. And so now, all since May, until Uranus stationed on the 1st of September at 27 degrees, and again, you can give or take 2 degrees for that, there has been a bit of progress that you're reviewing, that you had to review from the 1st of September until this point. And now, as you go forward, you want to reflect on that. How do I want to change? How do I want to show up? How have I already changed? Acknowledging that and realizing that now this is the opportunity with courage to move in this new direction, to change in the way that you show up, maybe in the way that you relate to people, and certainly in the way that you relate to yourself. So Uranus in the first makes you a different person. It's almost impossible to avoid being different. You might even physically change. Your appearance is also the first house, how you appear, literally, ta-da, kind of on the scene. And so you may have changed that. And at the very least, it's changing the way that you show up for yourself. And this is already a beautiful thing. So you're integrating that now going forward. You're trying to understand these last, 5 months, and based on what already had happened from May. So we're going forward now in time, and as Uranus goes in forward motion, it picks up steam, and then by the 7th of July, we'll actually move into your second house. So this is the last run. It'll go briefly into your first house again in November, from November until the early part of 2026. So November until, I think it's beginning of April. And so you do have this opportunity to really explore how you've changed and how you might still want to change and how that might be working for you. So definitely use that understanding from the last few months. And then also Venus, your ruler, has shifted signs. She's no longer exalted in your 11th house. She's still connected to the North Node and Neptune in your 11th house because she's still very, very close. And she's also moving very slowly. Now she's in the 12th house, and this is where you can start to pick up some understanding about your inner experience of life that comes through more unconscious motivations or hidden motivations or things that are quite literally hidden. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to go there. You don't want people to know about it. But it can also be about the afterlife or about people who have passed and relationships to those people. It can be ancestral relations, or it can be relationships to people who are from faraway lands, people who come from far, far away, and or that are still there, and that you are engaging in a new way of relating with them. Chiron has been in this part of your chart since 2018. By the way, Uranus has been in your first house since May 2018 as well. And it's now being squared by Mars. And so that square to Mars indicates this same kind of message as the Venus in the 12th, where you can start to investigate different ways that you've operated. And Mars is in the third house of your connections day to day with people and your willpower and how you move forward. But it's especially linked to family, extended family, brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, and stuff. Because it's Cancer. Your third house is Cancer. And as Mars is retrograding into this square, it's quite tight at the time that Jupiter is stationing and that Venus ingressed your 12th house. This is something that can be very healing, but you may not be able to necessarily feel the results of that until after Mars itself starts moving direct after the 23rd, 24th of February. So it's integrating stuff from the inside. It's a lot of stuff that we can understand from a place of personal unconscious motivations and clearing that space. So things become more, you become more aware of why you do what you do. And that makes Mars all the stronger in the third house, because that Mars in the third is going to be helping you find the motivation behind what you do. It's the house of aims and goals and the things that you want to get accomplished. And the third house is also how you communicate with people. So you can also notice that there may be a way of communicating that's not really helpful for you, or there's a lack of communication that also hasn't been working for you and needs to now step up a little bit, not with anger, not with the potential for snarkiness that can come with Mars in the third, or that passive aggressive energy, especially with Mars in the third in Cancer. And so recognizing that way of communicating might be part of the issue. It will affect your relationships because Mars rules your seventh house of relationships, as well as that 12th house of the unconscious. And that's, again, one of the reasons, the rationales behind the stubbornness and the feeling of fear, because Mars rules both the 12th and the 7th. And that feeling of fear, paranoia around, trust in relationships, or possessiveness in relationships, those are the typical kind of qualities, the negative shadow qualities of Taurus. And you can understand a lot about this and try and work through that and how you show up, because we've seen that Uranus is asking you to do that differently now. This can have something to do with work, because seventh house also is partnerships of all kinds. It's not just intimate ones. Partnerships and important relationships of all kinds are there, business as well. And Mars is in the house of business. The third house is quite a transactional house. And of course, Pluto is in your 10th house. So how you're showing up and what you need to, what you want to accomplish, what you need to do to be seen to be accomplishing something, or how you want to change your sense of overall life ambition, is very much in the 10th house. And also Jupiter has just stationed on the 4th, same day, just only hours after Venus moved into your 12th house. Jupiter is stationed at 11 degrees and 15 arc minutes of a degree, or 16 arc minutes of a degree, sorry. And that is, that's something that it had crossed that degree point in, where did we say that was? The 15th of July, the middle of July. So that's the last time we saw Jupiter at this degree point. And so if you go back to July and then retrace the steps all the way until the 9th of October, where now Jupiter is going to recover that territory, and it gets past that territory after the 30th of April. For some of you, that's going to be around your birthday as well. So from that time, from the 30th of April onwards, Jupiter is in new territory until it moves into your third house on the 9th of June. So from April 30th all through May and into the 9th of June, Jupiter is going to be doing new things. But for now, as it moves forward, it's going to it's consolidating what you've already understood from the middle of July. So a great opportunity for you to understand something to do with money, your resources of all kinds, including what supports you or what you might need to ask for support. This can also be about family. The second house is family, in the sense of how they support you, how they're there for you. Second house also is your possessions and your valuables, as well as your personal values. And as Jupiter is in this trine from Mercury at the top of your chart, that can be also something that you want to understand or express outwardly in the world. So maybe something about that is part of how you see yourself, and this can include what you might describe as legacy, how you want your legacy to feel to you, and that can be financial or social. How do you show up out in the world? And that trine from Mercury is all the more special because Mercury rules Jupiter in Gemini. So a really interesting dynamic here. So I think that's it, Taurus. It's helpful. It's a good time to dig in. It's a good time for a little bit of perhaps humble pie or self-analysis, where you recognize that there may have been a time when you weren't expressing yourself clearly or openly, and that because you've got a very emotional third house, so your way of communicating can be very emotional. You can be very easily hurt, or you can be very easily I don't know, intimidated that you don't communicate. With Mars there, it's an opportunity. It's a really, really good time, golden opportunity to clarify things as you need to, and also to admit where you may have been the obstacle in relationship. That's also part of the overall dynamic. Not to say anyone needs to be blamed, it's to understand what the roles were in those dynamics. All right, so good luck with all that, Taurus, and I'll see you in the next video. So Gemini, this is rather lovely because now you've got Jupiter moving directly through your first house once again. And that feeling you haven't had since the 9th of October when Jupiter stationed retrograde. And the last time Jupiter was at this part of your chart was the middle of July. So from the 15th of July till the 9th of October, Jupiter went from 21 degrees back to 11 degrees in your first house. So there might have been this feeling of being stalled, especially in your career. And for those of you who may have been looking for work, for example, this may have felt really frustrating. Or if this is about a relationship issue, that also may have felt frustrating. Like things are kind of not moving, even if Jupiter's in my first house. Why am I not getting this? Jupiter's not in its best place in Gemini, so it's a little chaotic. It can be unrealistic. It can be all over the shop. And that can be part of this dynamic. But your ruler, Mercury, is trining Jupiter. So there's a good insight here. And especially from the 9th house, it brings you some deep insights. It brings you some higher wisdom. And that's also what Pluto is doing up here in your 9th house, giving you a new perspective on what you believe, what you have faith in, how you want to understand the either spiritual or political or other dynamics of your life. So with this Jupiter now moving forward, you're going to have from now, 4th of February, until the 30th of April, for Jupiter to cover that territory that it already covered from the middle of July until the 9th of October. And so reflect on that, because it's about you, how you needed to grow, how you wanted to expand. Maybe you, I don't know, dropped the ball at some point or lost courage or something like that. And it may have affected your social status, and that includes marital status, as well as your work status, your employment, or your, especially self-employment, the 10th house, or your sense of vocation or your career. And so now it's a great opportunity to integrate that, change the directions that need to be changed, and then move forward and go deeper into the expansion that you understood you really needed to use and work with. So Uranus has also let's go back to Venus first before we get into Uranus. We'll come back to Uranus in a minute. So Venus has moved into the 11th house on the same day that Jupiter stationed direct in your first house. And so also on the 4th of February, Venus is moving slowly now through your 11th house. This is about social groups. It's about your future and your vision for the future, what you choose and what you would like. This has also been a bit of a tie-in with money, no doubt, because you've had Mars going through your second house for quite some time now. And as Mars has been retrograding since the beginning of December, there's this whole feeling of what do I need now in terms of money, in terms of maybe contractual relationships, or in terms of values. Maybe what do I need in terms of what I support or how I'm supported by others. And as it's ruling that Venus up in the 11th house, which is also a house of gains, there may be something here that you're understanding, or something that will start to move forward, especially by the end of February, in the direction that's more beneficial to you financially, or more beneficial in the sense of what you feel secure about, how you can feel more security financially or even socially, because Venus in the 11th can bring you relationships that are a little more conducive to feeling somebody's got your back, somebody's there for you. Let's see, and Chiron is also squaring Mars from your 11th house to your second house. So there may be something that you realize in terms of a vision for your future, or a sense of the ideas that you had around where you're going, how you're going forward, that you needed to modify, or that you needed to understand or integrate, because there was personal insecurity kind of blocking things at this point. You see that Chiron moved into this part of your chart since May 2018, maybe changing your whole sense of how you fit into this bigger picture, this whole social dynamic, and this maybe your social group or the world at large, and having a feeling of, what is my role here? How do I fit into all of that? And where am I going with the future? Now, Mars is playing its role here in a square to Chiron, getting you to really understand that, because Chiron is also retracing steps that it has already made many, many times since the end of 2023. So it's not a new story here with Chiron. It's something almost 2 years old that you've been dealing with. And now Mars is coming back and saying, okay, this is it. Figure it out. Why have you blocked yourself in this area of your life? And when Mars will also hold this square, and that's coming from your second house of your values as well. So is that why, or was it about money, or was it about insecurity around money, or issues around family that needed to be dealt with, that somehow blocked you from going in this future, the vision of the future, or this way of engaging out in the world? Then we also have Uranus, which is stationed already on the 30th of January in your 12th house. And it's stationed at 23 degrees in Taurus. And that station is corresponding to where Uranus was already in May. Can't find the date just off the top, but let's say anyway, May. And that's quite a big journey since May. You will no doubt have made a lot of changes and progress in so many areas. The 12th house represents the unconscious, the sense of what is going on behind the eyes, or behind the doors that are closed, or the places that are far from us and we can't see. 12th house can also be the money that you earn through international exchanges of some kind, business with partners who are overseas, or people who are at a distance from you. So there was maybe a need for you to change that, or there was a dynamic that felt like it was stuck or slowing down, or a bit unpredictable, as a very Uranian word. And this is something that's already been going on since May 2018. It's not a new situation. It's just that these degrees are being reworked in a new way since last July. Since last May 2024. And then Uranus slowed down and stationed retrograde at the 1st of September at 27 degrees. So you can give or take 2 degrees or so. We could extend it maybe to 3 at the most on either side of those degree points. And so from that point, from September 1st until the 4th of February, where we are now, Uranus has just retraced those degrees. So go back to your mid-May till the end of August period, and see what was important, what was changing, what dynamics were undergoing some kind of transformation. If this is something to do with the unconscious mind, which is entirely potential, very, very possible, you might find that you became more sensitive to intuitive information, or that you became more sensitive to understanding things without really knowing why you understand them. Why do I know this thing? Why do I get this message? And that can change your way of connecting with spirits, or with ancestors that are not maybe even known to you, or they might be known to you. But this is quite a strong dynamic for you. So a really interesting time also, if you're inclined to do that, to practice that awareness and that attunement, and to have confidence in it. Right, there we are. So good luck with all of that. Gemini, I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, this is happening. Well, what is happening? Let's start with Jupiter in your 12th house, stationing direct on the 4th of February. Venus has moved into your 10th house the same day, just hours earlier, and is in a really prominent part of your chart, both of which are moving really, really slowly. We'll start with Jupiter in the 12th, which will have had to do with a lot of your unconscious awareness, or perhaps connection to spiritual growth, and your connection to what you might describe as angelic support or spiritual support, or people who have crossed to the other side, whether you know them or not, spirit guides or teachers of all kinds. That Jupiter in the 12th can be very protective. There's an element of being cared for. And that Jupiter has been at this degree, or it first crossed this degree in the middle of July. So the 15th of July, it was at this point until it's stationed at 21 degrees of your 12th house. And that was on the 9th of October. So what we're reliving now as Jupiter slowly moves forward in the 12th is something you've already encountered. You have then gone over that since the 9th of October. So from the 15th of July till the 9th of October, you made new territorial gains, let's say, or new understanding, new awareness. And that can also involve foreign lands, people from far away, maybe traveling at a distance, especially because there's a lot of activity in your 9th house that Jupiter rules. All of those different gains that also then backtracked, and now you're retracing all of that. So Jupiter will then cross on the 30th of April, cross over the degree point that it was when it retrograded on the 9th, which is around 21 degrees. And it will continue to go forward until it enters your first house on the 9th of June. So from the 30th of April until the 9th of June, there's going to be something new and very different and expansive that's growing in that area of your chart. But until that time, it's more like integrating and going back towards what was already about to take root or to come to fruition. And now it has this opportunity to do so. In my case, for example, that 9th house also represents publishing, and Jupiter rules that. I have this natally. I have Saturn. This is my second Saturn return. I have Saturn just where it is, pretty 1 degree away. And I have Jupiter moving away from a square to Saturn. So where Jupiter stationed is my natal Jupiter. And one thing that happened is that the book that I've been translating for 2 years and that I'm working on publishing now in English was delayed. And the delay was a legal one. That's also 9th house, and publishing is 9th house. And it's based on international language and negotiation. So that's Jupiter in Gemini as well. And so when Jupiter moves forward, I kind of gave up on the whole process of trying to ask. I kept reaching out to them and asking them to please negotiate with me on this copyright that they hold, because otherwise I'm blocked. But at this point, I feel like things are going to unblock, and I will actually finally be able to produce the book with much delay. But this is just one example of how that can pan out, because there's something that's tying up a project that was underway, a project that seemed to have a forward momentum, and then something stopped, and it feels like things can open up again. With Venus now in the 10th house, there's going to be a lot of focus for Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising on your career, on your vocation, if you like, if you're not working, or your social status. And especially being Venus, especially that, the social status can be a part of that, meaning married, not married, together with somebody or not, parenting, not parenting. And Venus is moving really slowly from this point. When she entered into your 10th house on the 4th of February, she's only going to reach the 10 degree 50-minute point of your 10th house by the 1st of March, when she stations retrograde and slowly makes her way back into Pisces. So it's a really painfully slow process with Venus, but it's Venus, so it brings some kind of interesting results, something that can be a big lesson around your values, around relationship, how you conduct yourself publicly, and especially with people that you partner with, if you're working in partnership. Again, if it's a personal partnership or a professional partnership, that's still the 10th house. And this is a good time to really get clear about that. And again, I've done this video on Venus retrograde, and you'll just look for that Venus to get the Venus retrograde video to get all those dates and what that really symbolizes, and how you can go back in time every 8 years, go back in time and check out how that affected you roughly at the same time of the year as well, each 8 years increment. So there's something very auspicious coming in terms of career that's based on what you are also understanding in the 9th house about your higher values, your higher faith. Venus in the 9th is extremely happy. She's in Pisces, and in the 9th house exalted because of her position in Pisces, but also because the 9th house is about good fortune. And that's one of the things that Venus represents as well. And now that Jupiter is direct, Jupiter ruling the ninth house, this will also contribute to that feeling of things starting to work in your favor. Venus is going to be crossing out of your 10th house only by like the 6th of June or something. So this combination of your ninth and 10th house is a big story for you. Since September, you've had Mars in your first house, and it went retrograde at the beginning of December. So it cleared into your second house through November and December, and then on the 6th of January moved back into your first house. But since I think it was the 6th of December, it has been retrograde. And so there may have been this feeling also, again, about feeling sluggish, about feeling like not able to accomplish the thing that you really wanted to accomplish, whether it's personal or with reference to your physical well-being or with reference to career, and things needing to be realigned, renegotiated, changed in some way so that it suits you better. Mars is also in a square to Chiron, and that Chiron has been in your 10th house since May 2018. And that has also changed your relationship to how you show up for yourself out in the world. In what form maybe do you work, or how do you reach out as yourself into your career or into your social dynamic? And that certainly has been changing. And with Mars squaring that, because Mars rules that Chiron, rules your 10th house, all the more important then, Mars squaring that is an opportunity for you to really integrate how you need to proceed, because Chiron has been off and on around this 19-degree point for almost 2 years. So you're now able to clear that. It won't be at this degree point again. It's moving beyond that in 2025. So this last square, which it holds for several weeks because of the slowness of Mars, and the slowness of Chiron, even if it's direct, it's something that you can really integrate and learn from in terms of what action do I need to take on my behalf? How do I need to integrate that? How do I need to maybe communicate that as well? How do I need to express that? Asserting myself, or at the very least, taking care of myself in a way that works better for me and allows me to show up in the outer world as I want to, as speaking as a Cancer moon and rising myself. And so the other aspect of this moment in time is that Uranus is moving through the 11th house of gains, along with the ruler of Cancer, which is the moon, currently in an exalted position, square Pluto. So there's some really big dynamic here that helps you to integrate unconsciously what needs to be changed, or how you might want to bring more of your hidden talents or overcoming issues that might be something to do with fears or something to do with family patterns or family secrets or something along those lines, working in that direction to understand how that will impact your future. The moon in Taurus is very, very happy, very comfortable, because it's all about sensual things. It's about connecting in relationship, and that's a very lunar quality. It's also about stability, emotional stability, being out there in a way that feels consistent. And that may not have been easy, certainly since 2018, May 2018, when Uranus has moved through that 11th house, which is about how you connect socially with people, which will have changed dramatically since then. It's also about your gains, which also will have changed dramatically since then. And it's about how you see your future, also will have changed dramatically. So a lot of this bigger dynamic is understood now. If you go back to May and through that period of time from May until the beginning of September, notice how you changed your interactions with people, groups, casual friends as well, or the people that you need to interact with in terms of networking, whether that's, for professional advancement or for a spiritual or political reason that you want to connect with people. Whatever that dynamic is, now you've integrated and understood something about that. So as Uranus moves forward and then clears that point of 27 degrees where it's stationed on the 1st of September, it's going to continue its journey through your 11th house and leave your 11th house finally on the 7th of July. So you're going to have these, 4th of February, 7th July, 5 months, where you're going to have this opportunity to grow into what you already tried to grow into, and stabilize that and deal with what needs to be changed. Find that courage. Uranus is about recognizing how you need to be, how, what is being true to yourself, how you stabilize that and move into it. And then you'll get a peak again from November through till April 2026, when Uranus moves slowly back into your 11th house, the final time, and then 2026 beyond, and then beyond for 7 years roughly. Uranus is in your 12th house. We'll do a separate video about that. What didn't I cover? Yeah, so there was a trine that is just now separating. It's a trine from Mercury in your 8th house to Jupiter in your 12th. So there was probably something insightful, something that was profound and maybe integrated from the inside out, or some kind of deep, probably intellectual understanding or even psychic understanding of some things that have become more heightened in your awareness over these days. And that's anyway part of the script, let's say, as Pluto moves into the 8th house. And this can also be around money, because the 8th house is also money that you get from other people, things that you receive from other people in general, or what you share from other people. And the 12th house can represent donations or loss, or money that is given away, money that is in one way or another not necessarily coming to you, unless it's coming from either a spiritual pursuit or it's coming from a faraway place, faraway lands. I think that's it, Cancer. Yeah, and just very briefly, that dynamic of the changing direction of Jupiter also affects your 6th house of health, everyday work, how you show up every day, your schedule, and so on. So from now on, until Jupiter moves into your 1st house on the 9th of June, this is also an opportunity for you to really stabilize or figure out things that may have been unconscious, things that you've been doing, either habits or addictions or behavior, or things that you did do that you shouldn't have done, or that you didn't do that you should have done, that will improve your day-to-day quality of life and health potentially as well. That will apply to some of you. Right, so good luck with that, Cancer. I'll see you in the next video. Leo, what an experience you're having now with the top of your chart really, really in your focus. So that means your outer life is really, really heightened very strongly these days, these last few months. And there's a lot of big shifts that are happening. So this will affect things like relationship energy, your career, your sense of your purpose and your identity in terms of how you want to show up in the world. Where to begin? So we're going to start with let's start with Jupiter in Gemini, which is now moving direct through your 11th house again. And the last time that it was at this particular degree spot was in the middle of July. So from the 15th of July onwards, Jupiter has moved across this place, and it went to the 9th of October to 21 degrees, and it backtracked 10 degrees between the 9th of October and this point. So now when Jupiter moves forward until the 30th of April, we're really looking at what has already happened and how we need to really integrate that, how that needs to take shape. And that's about your vision for your future, or about your relationships with friends and associates, or about how you can get support from people. Jupiter in the 11th is fantastic for getting support from people in high places, or people who are well connected and really helpful. And so that dynamic of Jupiter moving through your 11th house can bring you gains, especially from work or career issues, things that you deal with yourself if you're an entrepreneur, or things that you've produced yourself. And that's really helpful in general, but especially as Jupiter is going to be continuing to move forward right through till the 9th of June, you really are all systems go in that sense. This might be gains that you get through a partnership, because Jupiter rules your 8th house of shared resources as well, and it rules your 5th house of creativity. So for those of you that are exploring your creativity and working in partnership with others, it's a really, really good time. Also, Mercury in your 7th house is trining that Jupiter. It's now separating from its trine at the point that Jupiter has stationed direct, but it's still very powerful because Mercury is ruling that Jupiter, rules your 11th house. So there may be something that you're recognizing in terms of a relationship, a business partnership, or a life partner that is also bringing you a new vision for your future or a new sense of expanded connection, expanded inspiration. Jupiter in the 11th is representing the stage as well. So the 11th house is like the stage that you do your thing on. Um, and that's where that's another reason, for example, that Leo, especially on the first house, Leo, 11 houses from Leo is Gemini. So Leo likes to express itself openly and publicly and tell everybody in the world all about itself. And so that's again what makes Leo a Leo. It's not just because there's a random thing called Leo. And so that Jupiter there gives you this opportunity also to take that fifth house energy, which Jupiter rules, and bring it out into the public. Now, something about this is even more strongly emphasized because Venus is also now moving through your ninth house. And so you might tie that into a feeling of, I've got a purpose to do this now. I've got a sense of a higher purpose. Venus rules your 10th house of social status and how you show up. So that also can really be very fruitful for your career. And this, if it is about a marital partnership, that can also be really helpful in terms of not so much the first marriage, but usually subsequent marriages that can show up a little more favorably. It doesn't have to be only that, but it's Venus in the ninth is also really good at learning things and sharing what she learns, bringing that out to people based on what you've understood about yourself. You get more clear around values. This can also represent issues around the father. Ninth house is father figures, it's teachers and people you get teachings from, people who show you the way, let's say. And so you might also have an enhanced relationship with those people, or you might be changing your mind around that because Venus is also stationing on the 1st of March. She's stationing at 10 degrees 50 minutes in your ninth house and going back into Pisces. Chiron has also been there and it's now squaring Mars. So Chiron may have had you doubt your relationships with father type figures or your higher vision or your belief, having faith. What do I have faith in? I'm not so sure anymore. Can I even have faith in myself? How do I go forward with a sense of what I truly believe? For example, that's been the Chiron journey since 2018, May 2018. And now Chiron in a square to Mars might have you realize certain things about yourself unconsciously. Mars rules your 4th house of your psychology, as well as that 9th house, family and lineage and so on. And the 12th house is ancestors. So you might realize, especially with Saturn and Neptune, and now the North Node going through your 8th, you might realize some things that you've learned about your family legacy, family patterns, unconscious psychological patterns, or painful family experiences, some kind of family secrets and things like that you're starting to recognize you might be carrying, and that you realize now I can change this, I can do something about that, I can work better with this now. So that's a good part of that dynamic of the Mars squaring Chiron to the 9th. And it can also have something to do with your what is going on behind the scenes. There may be some unsettled emotional activity when Mars is in the 12th. There can be feelings of frustration, especially not in strong dignity, which it is in Cancer. Frustrations that come kind of percolating to the surface, or things that you can't really expose, things that you can't talk about because it's still either in a preparation phase or it's something that's happening that is not something you should be doing. That's one way that can pan out. Venus retrograding back and forth from your 8th to your 9th will bring that outwards. So beware that whatever it is that's happening, if there is something that's going on in the hidden realms that should be revealed, Venus will do the revelation at the very latest by June, because then she'll go into your 10th house where she's very strong. So just saying. And then you also have, so Uranus in your 10th house has been there again, just like Chiron in your 9th. Uranus has been in your 10th house since May of 2018. And that will have changed you quite dramatically in so many ways, both your career and your way of showing up in the world and your sense of what you want to do, like what your legacy is, what your ambition is, what your higher sort of aims are in this life. And also perhaps in terms of partnerships, who do you do that with? Are you married? Are you not married? That would have been quite unstable, quite a place of frustration at times because Uranus is shaking up things that, especially in Taurus, don't want to be shaken up. And it can cause a feeling of rebelliousness or a feeling of wanting to push back against authority figures, because that's also that 10th house quality. You may have even had issues with bosses or trying to become your own authority and it didn't pan out yet. It's not really worked yet for you. That's a good part of the journey of Leo, is trying to become that authority figure. That leadership quality is very important for a Leo to express. And so this might be part of that journey that you've been working on for many years already. Now, Uranus has been at this particular degree since May. And from May through till the end of August, beginning of September, Uranus went from 23 to 27 degrees of your 10th house. And it's been now going backwards since September. So for the last 5 months, it retraced its steps. So if you go back over that period of time, May through September, you'll understand something of what is now going to resolve or become more. You'll be maybe more brave about making the change, about stepping up into who you need to be. As I mentioned in the introduction, when Uranus crossed over from my 9th into my 10th house, that's when I realized I could be an astrologer. And in my 10th house, I have my midheaven as well. When Uranus touched the midheaven, that was when I was clear. That was what I was going to do. So that whole process took about a year. And I changed the way that I was working, and I added more of the astrology into that. And that's been about 14 years for sure. So that process is maybe what you've also been going through. And this is also the time where you can really say, okay, I'm doing this thing. It feels different to how people used to see me, but I'm doing this thing because it's more me. It feels like more me. So that hopefully is how you're experiencing this moment, Leo. I think I've covered all this stuff that needs to be covered. And yeah, I wish you all the best, Leo, and I will see you in the next video. So Virgo, this is a really exciting time for you in terms of your career and your relationship energy. Really big year. 2025 in general is a really huge year for you. And 2026 to a large extent as well. Big journey in relationships, big journey in terms of your career. Really full of opportunities. So reach, for the stars, quite literally, Virgo. A really, really nice time. So where to begin? So we have Jupiter at the top of your chart. We'll start with that. Jupiter has stationed on the 4th of February, stationed direct now at the degree that it crossed already in the middle of July. So 15th of July, for those Virgos who like to be precise, Jupiter crossed this degree at the top of your chart in terms of the house of your reputation, your social status, your career, your social status can represent things like marriage or even cohabiting. That might be something that you established around that time or that you planned for example. And then Jupiter has gone up to 21 degrees, where it's stationed on the 9th of October, and it's now moving back to this point. So basically what happened from the middle of July until the 9th of October is what we retraced since the 9th of October. And now you're going to move back in that direction, but there's a forward vision. There's a momentum now that's taking you in a new direction. And since Jupiter rules your house of relationship, as well as your 4th house of home, this may be about connecting with somebody, around living with them, marrying them, partnering for business with them, buying property with them, any of these things. And it feels like now there's maybe an adjustment period that you've been going through for these last few months. And now you have this higher sense of purpose. A better sense of what that should be for you, how it's working for you. And that continues all the way through until the 30th of April, when then Jupiter crosses over the degree points that it already crossed, that we've already been familiar with. And then it starts to go into new degree points through May and into the 9th of June, when it moves into your 11th. So from 30th of April, Jupiter crosses the 21st degree of Gemini and then clears the rest of your sign. So that's really something new and dynamic, something that you haven't yet encountered, that's ahead of you. There's loads of time to think about that, so don't worry about it. I'm just giving you that heads up. But it'll touch on those areas of life again that have to do with partnerships of all kinds, your relationship energy, perhaps business partners, but also intimate ones, and establishing something longer term, something important and serious, because Saturn is there in your 11th house, in your seventh house rather, and so is the North Node, and that's really rare. That's really exceptional when Saturn and the North Node meet, especially if this is around your descendant point. So that'll be in the third decan of Pisces. If that's around your ascendant or rather descendant point for you, if you've got a Virgo rising, you know that you are going to have your life changed by relationships. That's for sure. And that will be something that is long lasting and connecting you to somebody in a very, very long period of time. So that's going to happen in March and April. When Saturn connects with the North Node. And again, I'll bring you some more information later. It's just too much all at once. So we also have Uranus, which on the 30th of January stationed direct at 23 degrees. And that's where Uranus was in May. So from May of 2024 until, what was it, the end of August, Uranus went from 23 to 27 degrees in your ninth house of your sense of purpose, your vision for your life, or your sense of why am I here? Maybe your faith as well, your sense of what you believe in. That can also be around a dynamic of relationship with your father or father figures. Those father figures can be more like guides, like they teach you something, they show you the way. They might be counselors or mentors, that type of figure. Very important figures in the ninth house that tend to be influential in your bigger picture of life and not just the little details. And so this might be also something that changed, that fluctuated. You might have had to adapt to that, to them changing, or that you needed to change and grow through that. And now you're going to be recovering and integrating that territory again since May. That has already been kind of, you're working through that, digesting that as a good Virgo should. And then you're going to go through all the way the rest of the ninth house. Uranus, not you, will go through your ninth house until the 7th of July, when Uranus moves into your 10th house. And that's when the whole big picture of your life will change even more. So lots of energy for career change at the moment. Jupiter gives you a bigger vision at this time, with Jupiter at the 10th house, what you would like to accomplish, how you want to see that happen, the potential, the possibilities that are there. And Uranus will come in and say, it's all got to be different from this point on. And I want you to feel that inspiration that you're getting from the ninth house and pull it into your 10th house, because as it's going to go in there in July, you'll have a trine from Pluto and also a sextile from Saturn with Neptune in your 8th house. So there's going to be a lot of dynamic change that brings you to a better place, that's going to show up publicly, and it will appear different in your everyday life and in how you share resources with other people. So a big shift. It's very difficult to predict with Uranus, but it will be usually something you have an inkling about. It's not usually entirely out of the blue, although it can absolutely be, but often it's something that's kind of lurking, and you just haven't really found the modus operandi, or you haven't found the nerve to do the thing that's been lurking, that you have been, let's say, since 2018, in May 2018, when Uranus went into your ninth house, that you've been kind of percolating or cultivating since then, and thinking, yeah, but I can't do that. So if that's part of your story, this is the time to prepare. You're in the last few laps of this journey through your ninth house. So dig deep and go forward then in July into something that you really want to stretch into in your social status or career house. So Mars has also been in your 11th house. It was September, October in your 11th house. Then it stationed retrograde in your 12th and came back into your 11th on the 6th of January. And Mars itself is moving back and forth through this 11th house of your vision for your future. And that might involve part of this bigger story of relationship as well, because it is also connecting you to your emotional experience, which is part of the way that you engage with people, that you might feel that you need to have more clarity around boundaries. Saturn is certainly indicating that too in your 7th house, but Mars in the 11th, especially in Cancer, might show you where you need to assert yourself more or have more clear boundaries Mars rules your eighth house, also about the hidden aspects or what you share with others, or your unconscious processes as well, psychological state. And it's in a square to Chiron. And Chiron has been working through this long-term healing since May of 2018, where you probably have been doing some kind of work on yourself and investigating, let's say, how you feel about intimacy, how you connect with people in a way that feels vulnerable, that can be emotionally, psychologically, or physically intimate and vulnerable with somebody. And now with Mars here, you can also feel there's something that you need to understand about how you change your way of operating with other people, or in terms of your vision for your future, or in terms of how you connect in general socially, so that you feel more courageous, or more of a sense of what's necessary, and what's, maybe feeling less hard on yourself, which many times Virgo can feel, and where that can bring you a real about face. And that Chiron, where it is now, has been at this kind of 19th degree point for a long time. It's like over a year and a half. So it's a long journey that Mars is now poking at 3 times. And so Mars is quite slow at this point. It's only going to move 2 more degrees before it stations on the 24th of February, 23rd to the 24th of February, where it starts to move direct. And then it'll maintain the square to Chiron pretty much for this whole period, these many, many weeks of time. And because it's moving so slowly, and that's an extended period of time where you can really understand, in terms of growth, whether it be through your social status changing, marriage, not married, divorcing, whatever the thing is, as well as your professional status. You can understand, where is it in me, the way that I'm engaging with my vision for my future, or with people, or with the gains that I might make from the things that I do. How is that coming through me unconsciously? Pluto definitely for the last 2 years has been changing your everyday life. This is a big part of that overall story. So your everyday work, your health, your everyday kind of quality of life is changing quite dramatically. And so that's quite significant. And we've got your ruler in the 6th house trining Jupiter, that rules your 10th as well. So Mercury rules your 10th and rules your 1st house of self, and or it rules your sun, or it rules your moon. And so there's some support here that's coming through your awareness of health, your awareness of your everyday life, and the way that you structure all of that. So again, in terms of why Virgo is like it is, it's got a fixed sign on the 6th house. It's Aquarius, it's air. It's like fixed intellect on the 6th house, like things have to be done this way, or I don't feel comfortable. So that's one of the ways that Virgo shows up as Virgo. So again, these things are not random. They have a deeper meaning. Anyway, just to say that this is a really good time for you to feel yourself growing in a very big direction. And it's got a lot to do with your work and your connection to a partner, or to people in general, and how you want to reach into a vision for your future. So good luck. I think I've covered all of that. Did I cover Venus in the 8th? Maybe not. Can't remember now. So Venus has moved into your 8th house. She's ruled by that Mars in the 11th. So part of your vision for the future, or the way that you're interacting with people, is informing that Venus. And Venus is stationing on the 1st of March at 10 degrees 50 minutes in your 8th. And so she's going to take a month, so basically 4 weeks, let's say, to get to actually less than 4 weeks for that Virgo precision. It's like, yeah, it's less than 4 weeks she's going to take to get to this 10 degree 50 minutes of Aries. And then she's going to retrace those steps and take several weeks to get back into Pisces, where she'll come back into your relationship house. So this period of time, basically since January and through to the end of May, beginning of June, is all about what's going on in relationship dynamics, and in how you share intimacy, how you share money. Venus rules your 2nd house of money and possessions, and your values, your valuables. And she rules your 9th house, which is also where we're finding that Uranus influence, let's say, and that's your vision and how you reach out into all of that. So there's something here about how you connect with people on a deeper level, or even how you're connecting to yourself and your own value, as well as values. in a much deeper, maybe more psychological way. So something about intimacy, something about how you share and connect with people is going to be very strong. But it's an ongoing story for the next 3 or 4 months. So don't rush into anything, no need. And also your ruler, Mercury, will end up stationing almost at the same degree that Venus stations. I've done videos about that in the past, so you can look for those. And that's also going to be very significant because that your ruler, Mercury, retrogrades several times a year, but that's always an interesting time for you to reassess, look at things internally, and especially when it's in the 8th house. All right, so Virgo, good luck with all of that, and I'll see you in the next video. So Libra, I'm going to start with your ruler Venus in your 7th house. And Venus, it has only just entered the 7th house on the 4th of February, just hours before Jupiter in your 9th house, trining you, stationed direct as well. So she entered in to Aries, where she's really moving slowly because she's preparing to retrograde by the 1st of March. And she only covers 10 degrees and 50 minutes. So just the first decan of your 7th house. And then she goes back over that and backs up into your 6th house. So when your ruler is preparing a retrograde, you might feel that you yourself are slowing down. Things might be feeling a little bit slow, or there may be some things in relationship that are persisting or that feel sluggish. But nonetheless, Venus in the 7th is quite a lovely aspect to have. Even if she's not in strong dignity, she's still Venus and she's your ruler. So it's usually pleasant. You'll find something really nice about relationships and about engaging with people. And you'll maybe feel more like connecting with people, or they feel more like they want to connect with you as well. Also, Venus is ruled by Mars in your 10th house, which is currently retrograde, so also moving very slowly, and in square to Chiron, which is in your 7th, and Mars rules that obviously too, as it rules the whole 7th house. And Mars also rules your 2nd house of money, so and family and whatever supports you. And so there can be this feeling of something that is a desire or an aspiration, a personal need or an ambition that you might have that connects you to your social status. It could be marital status or business association. And it's not quite clear. It hasn't been really moving in the direction that you wanted since the beginning of December. And so basically since the 6th of January, Mars moved back into your 10th house. So you had this kind of thing, I'm going in this new direction, I'm going forward, career, it's all kind of sorted. And then in November, December, it started backtracking, or at least from December, it started to backtrack, and it's no longer what you thought it might be. Things need to be resolved. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It gives you an opportunity to revise this, and it might be also a reflection of what needs to change in relationships, as Mars in a square to Chiron can really show you where there may be some sabotage element going on in your relationship sector, where you're kind of doing things against your own best interests. That might be also about how you show up. We saw that with the last year and a half of having the South Node through the 1st house, where you had to learn how to change your behavior in relationships to have better relationships. And certainly Chiron has been a big part of that. For over a year and a half, it's been roughly at this degree, but Chiron has been in your 7th house of relationship since April, May of 2018. So it's not new to you. It's just that the square to Mars is quite new, and it's inciting you to change. You'll get another square to Mars in March, and that's when Mars is then direct, and it will square that Chiron again. You also have Jupiter in the 9th house, where it loves to be. And the 9th house is a lucky house. It's trinal to you, so it's bringing you a lot of benefit. And it's also trining your 5th house of good fortune, and also happiness and love and joy and creativity and so on, where we find Mercury in trine. And so Mercury itself is just moving out of a trine as Jupiter station. So at that crucial moment where Jupiter appears in the sky to move back into its direct motion, its ruler, Mercury, has been giving it support. It's giving it a kind of a blessing. And so you're intuiting something, or you're understanding something that is perhaps going to take you to a place of more confidence, that might also come from a place of understanding your sense of purpose, or what you believe in, what you have faith in. that for Libra, that can waver quite a lot, because the ninth house is where we find the dual sign Gemini. So you might doubt your belief, or you might be a little insecure, and you look to others to more show you that way, which is part of the dilemma of the Libra, especially well, all three, Libra, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So that Jupiter is going to give you a lot more inspiration, and maybe a more positive vision, a more positive sense of yourself. And it comes from a creative place at this time, because Mercury is in your house of creativity. Perhaps it's about your children. Pluto is moving into your fifth, so there's a part of you that really needs to be seen and show up in a new way. But that can also be about how you relate to the idea of having children, or children themselves. And because that's happening at the same time that we've got this Jupiter in this really lovely place in the chart, you might be feeling pretty good about things at this point. So you'll deal with perhaps the Mars frustration a little bit better than you might have at other times. Jupiter was back at this point in mid-July. So from the 15th of July, where it was at this degree point, around 11 degrees of Gemini, it went to 21 degrees of Gemini, where it's stationed on the 9th of October, and then has gone back over this territory. So this is not new. What we're going to move into now is not new territory. You're revising, or you're recreating something that you wanted. And so you're moving into something different or better. And then that Jupiter will actually move into your 10th house on the 9th of June. So go deep into understanding your purpose, understanding what you have faith in, what you believe in, maybe qualities that you might have around teaching, because you do have Jupiter ruling your third house, and it's there in the ninth house. That axis is really about learning and teaching together. And you've also got Jupiter ruling your sixth house of everyday work. Teaching doesn't have to be like, on a blackboard doing the basics. It's about showing the way, being a pathfinder. So this is also really strong, especially as the North Node is in your sixth, asking you to show up differently at work, or in the type of work you do, or the way that you do your work, as well as to perhaps also benefit your health. So it could also be that you have a better vision for life that also improves your health at this time. Uranus is in your eighth house of what is more hidden, a secret place, kind of the intimate area of your life. It could be psychologically intimate, emotionally, sexually even. And that's also where we find, maybe since 2018, May 2018, quite a lot of change, quite a lot of awareness, perhaps around your unconscious motivations, or around family trauma or family issues, family secrets, marital stuff that you may have had to deal with, change in marital status, change in the quality of your engagement in terms of your intimate life as a married couple. And so now Uranus is moving forward from a degree that it already was at in May. So Uranus was at this degree point in May, and it moved all the way through till the end of August, beginning of September, where it got to 27 degrees. And at that point, it started shifting back. And so basically what we've seen for the last 5 months is the kind of review of May through the end of August. And now you're going forward and you're saying, okay, I understand all of those desires, all of those things that needed to change, all of those things that I'm ready to confront or deal with. I can now move forward in this new direction. Saturn is also being trined by this retrograde Mars. That trine holds for quite some time, through much of February and March, because then Mars will station and change direction, and Saturn is going to be caught up, let's say, by Mars in March. So we'll get these trines coming again and again, but they're very much in orb all through most of February and March. And that's really good for planning long term. It's for finding that determination, in your case, around work, around your social status, what you want to accomplish, how you want to reach out into that, and also potentially around things that you might need to overcome, in terms of, it could be your daily habits, things that you're doing that you realize, yeah, that's not really good for me, it's not really helping. And Saturn with Mars in trine is going to give it a lot more juice, that's going to be more confident, like willpower that you can use to achieve your bigger goals overall. So pretty good time, I'd say. Pretty nice, all in all. All right, Libra, have a good time with that. I'll see you in the next video. Scorpio, what to say. Your ruler Mars is the only one retrograde at this point, and that might feel a little frustrating, except that it's in the ninth house, which is a pretty nice place for Mars because there's this feeling of I've got a purpose, I just don't know how I can do the thing. And so the frustration probably by this point is not what is my purpose, but how do I achieve it? How do I reach out into that? Now, the ninth house can also represent fathers or relational things with fathers, father figures, and that might be part of this bigger story for you that you need to grapple with. And also, we have a square from your sixth house where Chiron is to that Mars. So there's something about what you're doing every day, or maybe about your health, or something you're understanding around those things, around how you deal with obstacles and challenges. That is also part of this dynamic of Mars, which you'll need to figure out and change to accomplish the bigger vision, accomplish the thing that you want, or go into that career success that you're reaching into. Also, Venus on the 4th of February, just hours before Jupiter stationed direct, Venus moved into your sixth house, and that's where she's going to be retrograding. So you've got quite a lot of change around your dynamic of your work every day, perhaps again related to health. That would depend on your personal situation, but the Venus moving back and forth between your fifth and sixth house also suggests that your everyday life is impacted by either your children or by your personal desires and creative impulses, your way of wanting to express that, and maybe how to bring that into your everyday work. Fifth house is also your sense of joy, happiness, what brings you pleasure. And certainly there's been a lot of influence around that. Saturn has been at times curbing that, or making you get serious about that, checking maybe how to work with that in a way that's constructive and long-term. If this is something to do with children, there is also part of this dynamic that will show up in your life around that. And you can look for the video that I already did about Venus retrograde, that whole pattern. I did a video about the Venus retrograding probably at the beginning of January, and you can look for that for more details on this. But it's going to affect your everyday life in a big way, in a way that it would have in 2017 around this time of the year, as well as 2009, 2001, etc., every 8 years back. So Pluto has moved into your fourth house of your home, your sense of grounded security, whether that's literal in the sense of land and property and an actual house and home, or is it something to do with your interior experience, your psychological experience of life? And that can be very life-changing because it's angular to you. It's in the fourth house, squaring your any placements that you have in Scorpio. So something here is changing quite profoundly. You can get really deep into understanding you, who you are, what makes you tick, your connections to the lineage that you've come from, or your family of origin, and your also maybe your need for security, what makes you happy. So fourth house is like understanding what you need to feel secure and happy. The fifth house is how you reach out into that, how you express that. So that's a big dynamic anyway for you. And also Mercury from the fourth house is also trining the Jupiter that's currently in your eighth house, that is favorable for insight. So if you've been working with Jupiter in the eighth, for whether you're working on something psychological and trying to understand a process that is more constructive for you, this will really help with that. And if it's something financial, maybe about money that you share with a partner, or how you reach out into shared intimacy, or any of those aspects of human interaction on a deeper, less superficial level, that can also be something that's really favorable to you now, understanding something quite like right now about these aspects. But the fourth house, fourth house to eighth house connection can also be something about money shared for property reasons, or money that is received or exchanged because of family reasons. There may be for example, an inheritance or something like that that comes along. What haven't we mentioned here? Yeah, Uranus, the elephant in the room, that Uranus in your seventh house that is stationing it already stationed direct on the 30th of January. And so that's also something that is really slow at this time. So maybe you won't notice that change so much at this point, yet it's going to bring some kind of significant transformation to your relationships. And if you go back in time through May of 2024 up until the end of August, beginning of September of 2024, we're now recovering the territory that Uranus backed through. So as Uranus goes forward, we're not going into new territory yet. We're going into the same kind of energy that we've understood since May. And it felt like something slowed down by September, or it wasn't really working in the direction or the way that you'd hoped. And then from September onwards, there may have been a lot of adjustment necessary. This adjustment maybe around relationships or business partners, where it's been like maybe one constant sort of feeling of negotiation, especially as Jupiter was retrograding in your eighth, pretty much from the 9th of October, which is kind of a similar time zone. So you would have had this feeling of maybe ongoing, nonstop negotiations or assessment around partnerships of all kinds. And certainly this is going to be shaping up very, very differently for the next few months. So Uranus will go all the way through the rest of your seventh house, where by the 7th of October, it reaches your eighth house. And I'll do a separate video about that. But that's going to change your intimate experience, and it's going to change your internal relationship as well to yourself. So whatever you're clarifying here, it's not new territory, but it needs to be, you need to find the courage to be real about it. So like if it's a relationship that you realize is just not constructive, it's too much work, or it's didn't change in the way that was necessary, Uranus will say, yeah, we're done here, we're moving along. And you'll find that courage, and you'll find this feeling of it's enough is enough. So a relationship that can survive Uranus transiting through the 7th is pretty strong. So that's one positive aspect of that. Right. So I think that's covered everything for you. I'm sure I'm getting confused now who I'm talking to. So anyway, I think I've covered it all for you, Scorpio, and I will see you in the next video. Sagittarius, your ruler, Jupiter, is in your 7th house, and it's stationed direct on the 4th of February, on the same day that Venus entered into your 5th house. So if you're working towards connecting in relationship or partnerships of all kinds, this is a magical time. It's a really wonderful period. And when I say this time, it's really an extended period from the 1st of February, really for the first kind of 10 days or so. It's pretty nice. All in all. And so there's a lot of things that now may have felt stuck up until now and now feel like they're moving in a nice direction. We have Mercury also in the 3rd house of communication and connecting with people, exchanging things with people, things, ideas, money, etc. Your local space, and that's trining Jupiter, which it rules because it rules your 7th house. So there might be something that you're realizing, okay, now I can reach out into these better quality relationships, or this better sense of what I need and want in a relationship or an actual person, especially for a woman. Jupiter represents the spouse, the partner. But anyway, it's your natural ruler for Sagittarius. So it's very important to follow that movement of Jupiter. So that trine is quite supportive. Might be support also around siblings or extended family, which is part of that 3rd house dynamic, and Mercury also is the karaka for that. It represents that as well. So Venus herself in the 5th house is also really supportive because she loves being in the 5th house. And that's what gives you your reputation as a bit of a flirt, because Mars rules your 5th house. And so you have quite a dynamic way of relating in terms of love and fun and so on. It's very sparky, very, very out there. It makes you very outdoorsy and strong as well. That's also the house of athletes and sports and things like that. So Venus is moving in there. So again, really nice energy for relationships. But Venus is going to retrograde in that place. She's going to take the whole of February into the 1st of March to get to 10 degrees 50 minutes of your 5th house. And then she'll backtrack and go back into your 4th house of home and what you need to feel emotionally stable. And there's a lot of emphasis this year on your 4th house. where do I live? How do I live? All that stuff. So look for the video that I did on the nodal axis and you'll hear more about that. But this is really a very good time for you anyway to explore new connections, new relationships, new ways of showing up creatively. Really lovely. And also this might affect your everyday work because Uranus is also stationing it's still kind of at the same degree since the 30th of January, where really for a couple of weeks, Uranus has been hovering around this degree and it's now moving direct. You won't notice that so much unless you have something really close to that point, so around 21 to 25 degrees of Taurus. But nonetheless, Uranus is picking up steam and moving forward from the place that it already crossed into in May. And then it went all the way to the end of August, beginning of September, went to 27 degrees and then backwards until the 30th of January. So we're moving across territory we've already looked at. We've already been here. And there's something about work or your everyday life, how you organize your day and your time, maybe your health, mental or physical, especially potentially mental health or psychological, emotional health, because Mars has been in your 8th house and it has been there September, October, and then again from the 6th of January. So that's part of the Mars story retrograding for you as well. So maybe there's been something that you've been looking at in terms of health and how that impacts your work, how that impacts your job, how that impacts your ways of dealing with obstacles and difficulties. So this shift now with Uranus moving direct now through the 6th house is going to change your, based on what you've already understood basically for the last 7 months or so, it's going to change your everyday life and you'll start to make those changes consciously. You'll be more brave and do the thing that you recognize you really want to do. And that can have you changing quite a lot when Uranus goes in your 7th on the 7th of, goes in your 7th house of relationship on the 7th of July. It'll go back and forth between July through April of 2026 when it finally clears into your 7th and stays there for 7 years. So there's a big shift on the horizon that might be about a relationship. It might be about a specific person, or it can be about a job, work relations of some kind. But Uranus going through the 7th is monumental. It's a quadrant house. It's an angular house opposing you. So that also means that you change by virtue of the relationships that you have. So that whole dynamic is changing. Worth pointing out that it's at the same time as the nodal axis is also going to be squaring that at some point. We'll talk about all those things as they come up. So yeah, really dynamic time for you. And so that Pluto in the 3rd house is also part of this bigger picture of change. It's going to be trining Uranus when it moves into your 7th, and then Pluto will sextile Venus soon, within the week that we're talking about here. As we get into early February, Venus moves into a sextile with Pluto. So lots and lots of support for relationship for Sagittarius, support for enjoyment and pleasure, changing your frame of mind, let's say, at the moment, and hopefully for the better. What have I not covered? Oh yeah, the square. So the Mars from the 8th squaring Chiron. That Chiron in the 5th has had you doubting your capacity to show up as yourself, or maybe being shy about being, doing the thing that you want to do, or maybe there's been an issue around quite literally what you create in the form of children, and then that might have been something that you've been struggling with. Mars is in the 8th house of pregnancy. And so that can be something that has been moving back and forth in either your psyche, or it's actually physically changing your relationship to children and babies and so on, if that's your case. I'd have to see your natal chart as well to know how all of that shapes up for you. But it's definitely a healing quality. This is about taking some kind of understanding, also psychologically, taking some understanding that comes possibly from the 8th house in terms of your inherited patterns from family, especially as it's Cancer for Sagittarius. What are the inherited patterns and the influence of mother, influence of family in general on you and how you show up? That's part of that dynamic. And now you can grapple with that, especially as Mars is slow and squaring Chiron for such a long time. And then by the 23rd, 24th, it's going to be moving forward itself. we'll do that in another video. All right. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. All right, Sagittarius, good luck with that. I'll see you in the next one. Capricorn. So this is all, it all seems to be under the radar, a little bit under the hood, but it's actually still going to impact your outer life very powerfully because a lot of the bigger change is coming from your way of evaluating your life and also how you show up in terms of what that means for you, how you represent that, how you connect with that, how you show that out in the world. And so part of the story is, of course, this Pluto in your second house, and we have Saturn, your ruler, in the third house, where it's all about how you change your values and your ways of evaluating things of importance, including money, possessions, that kind of thing, maybe even family. And also with Saturn in the third, both of those houses represent also a little bit about how you speak about things, how you communicate things, how you reach out into engaging with people on those in those interactive ways. And that's where we find the North Node as well. And so when your ruler is now moving direct and it continues, Saturn will move direct all the way through your third house now until the 25th of May. So it's not retrograding any longer until it gets into, I think it's October. Then it retrogrades back into, or is it maybe September? I forgot the date. That's a separate video. But anyway, it's going to be clearing that whole distance up until the 25th of May. So you've got something that's picking up momentum. And all the more so because Venus is in your fourth house, where there's something you're understanding, maybe feeling a little bit better about yourself, feeling a little bit better about what's happening maybe around home, or your sense of your emotional or psychological state is improving because it just feels more pleasant. There's a positivity when Venus moves into an angular house that is extremely personally enriching. And this is Venus is ruling your 10th house of career, so really significant for you, as that feeling of being secure now might translate into having more career security as well. This can also be with reference to marriage or other types of business partners. Mars is in your 7th house, ruling that 4th house. And that's something maybe that you've had to negotiate, especially as Mars has been retrograding back and forth here since the 6th of January, came back into your 7th house, September, and October, it was in your 7th house, then it moved into your 8th house, November, December, and then retrograded from the 6th of December backwards into your 7th. So you're dealing with this extended period of Mars retrograding. So there is something about house and home anyway, but also about your vision for your future, and perhaps also about financial gains that's quite significant. But if it's psychological, or if it's something to do with a feeling of insecurity around home, which would have been quite probable from May of 2018, a kind of a feeling of instability or not really being connected to where you live, or even to family, perhaps, maybe a feeling of, yeah, we'll call it instability or uncertainty that you may have also caused. This may have been something that comes up sort of almost like self-sabotage, which is often the chironic thing. That's now being squared by Mars. So there's something that you recognize that you have to do differently in relationship, whether it's a business partner or a life partner or in connection with family. And that is slowly changing, particularly strongly over, let's say, February into March. It picks up on this square many, many times. It's in orb for most of that period of time. So there's something that you're really processing around relationships, around potentially, again, professional ones, but also family or intimate ones. And Mars is also in a really lovely trine. It's creating a trine on and off again through most of February and March with Saturn in your third. So there's a big, juicy kind of dynamism around your personal goals and aims, and your sense of how you want to reach into relationship and contractual stuff. If contracts have been a little bit delayed or things have not been working entirely as you wanted, probably by the end of February, that's going to resolve. It may not be entirely sure until the 23rd or 24th when Mars is then direct, but it still might be okay. It wouldn't be awful if you signed a contract with a Mars retrograde, it's less worrisome than with the Venus or Mercury retrograde. So try and do this in that last week of February if you need to sign a contract. Read the fine print either way, and especially after the 1st of March and throughout March and April, read the fine print for sure, Capricorn. Jupiter's in your 6th house, and it's just on the 4th of February. It has just stationed direct. So it's recovering territory that it already covered from the middle of July, from the 15th of July through to the 9th of October, where it got to 21 degrees and then it backtracked to 11 degrees of your 6th house of work and health and your everyday life. So probably you've been feeling stuck really since October in terms of work, potentially around health, depending on your natal chart, but something has been grinding away in a frustrating way for you since October. And now you're just kind of going over that, resolving it, integrating it, and moving then from the 30th of April, you're moving into new territory. So it'll feel like you're retracing your steps, having to get rid of, deal with the everyday stuff. But it's favorable in the sense that Jupiter, moving forward through the 6th house can make that an easier task. So again, contracts and things like that become easier to figure out, or who owns what, who does what, that kind of stuff. Health issues, if there were any, that also can be dealt with in a more favorable way. What else? And then, of course, there's this lovely supportive trine from Mercury in your 2nd house of money and income and resources and family and whatever supports you in many ways. It's also food related. 2nd to 6th house can be about your diet, about your health, and so on. So that might be something too that's also finding a better framework, let's say, overall. But insight, support, Mercury itself represents contracts, and in the 2nd house, it's very much tied to money. And with Jupiter in the 6th, that can be part of the story of work. Right. So, and then we have Uranus in the 5th house, which is representing your children. If you don't have children, it's representing your creative impulses and things that you create, your babies, like work projects or creative projects, or your happiness, your joy, your hobbies, the things you find pleasant to do, and love, of course, romance as well. And so Uranus has been going back and forth through the 5th house since May of 2018. But where it is right now, it was from May of 2024, and it went all the way through till the end of August. I'm not even sure if I've already said this for you, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I'm at the 10th sign, and this is really going on a long time. So from May through the end of August, beginning of September, Uranus has been going from 23 degrees to 27, and then it started to go backwards to 23 degrees. So we're really kind of recovering this territory of an older story. And so there's an aspect of you, this is trinal to you, so it's a favorable change. It's going in the direction of what you feel more comfortable with. 5th house is also investments and risks, taking risks. So it feels like you've been here before, and if you're ready, if you feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing here, I'm taking this risk, but I know it's a calculated risk, the way that Capricorn likes it. We've got Taurus on the 5th house of risk taking. It's a fixed sign. It's not like, Capricorn is not frivolous. So it's a calculated risk that works in your favor. It's moving direct. It's all very good for you, and definitely taking you in a new direction as it goes all the way through your 5th house and into your 6th house of work by the 7th of July. So we'll look at that in another video, but this is preparing you to be different in your everyday life or your work life, or how you show up in terms of how you regulate and live your life. This is the preparation for that. All right, so Capricorn, make the best of that. I will see you in the next video. And so Aquarius, this is happening in your, well, I'll start with Jupiter. It's happening in a trinal house to you in the 5th house. Jupiter stationed on the 4th of February at 11 degrees of Gemini. And that's in a favorable place. It's in a fortunate place for you. And maybe now you're going to be starting to feel that things are actually moving in your favor, moving in a nice dynamic way, especially because you've also got the Sun and Mercury in your 1st house along with Pluto, where you've been 2 years now, forced to change and compelled to change yourself and how you show up and so on. And so that Mercury from your first house of yourself and where you're communicating and getting notions and ideas about things is really supportive of that Jupiter. It's trinal. It's bringing out the best of that movement now that Jupiter is moving forward. It rules Jupiter. So Mercury is the ruler of your fifth house. And so this is quite a nice positive development for you. So there might be more of a feeling of flow that comes from this point on. Not entirely yet, because we still have Mars retrograding in your sixth, but certainly by the end of February, that will feel like, yeah, things are now moving in this new direction. Mars is squaring Chiron in your third. So you might have recognized that there's ways of maybe how you've been using your willpower, or how you've been discussing things or talking about things, making choices that that you need to do differently, or you need to recognize you weren't really courageous enough, or that you were shooting yourself in your foot, perhaps, and where that affected your health or it affected your everyday life. So Mars will hold that square to Chiron for several weeks now, through much of February and into March. And so this is an opportunity for you to regulate your everyday life, regulate your health, regulate what you need to do, how you need to do it. Mars in the sixth is good because it's the house of challenges and obstacles and things that we need to overcome. We need to soldier on and move through. And Mars is, of course, a good soldier. So it's good to have that. It's just going to be easier when Mars finally then stations direct from the 23rd into the 24th of February. And then, of course, we have Uranus in your fourth house, where it backtracked from the 9th of, no, sorry, wrong planet, from the 1st of September. It backtracked from 27 degrees to 23 degrees, where it is currently, where it already was in May. So we're covering territory now that is like 7 months of a process of back and forth, and we're not yet quite ready with the fourth thing, but we're moving in that forward direction from now. So that change may have involved a change of residence, or a change of a feeling around what makes you feel secure, what you needed for that security intimately in terms of your emotional life or your psychological life, or what made you feel stable around family connections, lineage issues, or literally property, home and property. You may, with Saturn in your second, your ruler in the second house, you may have been having to invest, or especially with Jupiter in the fifth house, we're working through things like heavy investments that required a new way of organizing your finances, or that required you to commit to something that prevented you from spending in another way. Be careful with Jupiter in the fifth, now moving direct, because if you are frivolous around your money, if you're spending too much on pleasure or self-indulgence, that kind of thing, you will have a difficult time with that Saturn going through the second house, but you might have already figured that out by now. But you've still got Saturn going through the second, and it hasn't quite met the North Node, and it'll meet the North Node in March. We'll do another video about that. And then it leaves your second house of money on the 25th of May. So you'll know the results of how you've been dealing with finances, investments, anything that was self-indulgent or frivolous, or even, let's say spending on kids. Was that good or bad? Was that decision good or bad? You'll understand that clearly by the 25th of May. And don't worry, because it comes back in the autumn when Saturn goes backwards into your second and then finally leaves in February. So it's important to follow what Saturn does. It's your ruler. I don't give rulership to the outer planets because they move too slowly, and they're not personal. They don't connect. So Uranus has an affinity with Aquarius, but so do other planets. For example, Mercury. It's not worthy of rulership for me. So you do you. You don't have to argue with me in the comments about it. This is how I do it, and I think it works really well. So, having, by the way, tried to work with modern rulers for the first 5 years that I was working with astrology, it doesn't work. So Uranus in your fourth house will also potentially be a bit emotionally destabilizing, but again, that's going to resolve over the next few months, and then by the 7th of of July, it moves into your fifth house. So that changes your way of being, your way of showing up. So you want to resolve those kinds of feelings of emotional unsettledness or psychological, or even in terms of relating to your family, so that you can really change what needs to be changed, be different, be yourself, do what needs to be done to make that feel more secure. Uranus doesn't change things for the sake of change. It's changing things, I feel, for a reason of evolution, psychological or spiritual growth. So work with that. And equally with Venus now moves through your third house, where she's going to be stationing on the 1st of March. So she goes slowly at this point as well. Venus is also really slow. And that will also change quite a lot of the dynamics of your everyday life. You might have a lot more interactions with people. There might be something that comes through siblings, or some connection that comes from home relationships, or something that you're connecting to business that might be about contractual stuff. Be careful if this is about contracts, if there's something to be negotiated or agreed upon. Try and do all of that before the last week of February, before the 1st of March, when Venus stations retrograde. Certainly not on the 1st of March. You can do it when Venus is retrograde. It doesn't mean that you can't. It just usually means that things take off in a way that's a little slow or not as expected in terms of business, because Venus represents an aspect of commerce, which is about the finance, let's say, the money and the relational dynamic there. And she's in the third house of all of those things. It's also about words and communication in the third house. So there may be something here that you're ready to express and you want to teach or learn. And that would also be a really interesting use of that. I think that's it, Aquarius. I think I've covered all of that territory. Right, so good luck with that. Did I talk about Jupiter in the fifth? Can't remember. I'm going to just say it anyway, because yes, I did. I said trine to that. Jupiter in the fifth is very pleasurable, very favorable. I think I covered everything. All right, good. Aquarius, make the most of that. I'll see you in the next video. Oops, I missed Pisces. How did we do that? All right, Pisces, sun, moon, and ascendant sign. My dog is getting restless. I can feel her moving around here. Yes, we're nearly ready for lunch. And so, yes, just wait. Pisces, yeah, so your ruler, Jupiter, on the 4th of February, stationed direct, and that's always good news, because the ruler, when it's retrograde, it can slow things down, or it can feel like things are not working in a direct or easy manner. And certainly so when Saturn is also moving through your house of self, and that first house energy can make you feel restricted enough anyway. So with Jupiter now moving direct and picking up speed as it goes through February and into March, you're going to find a lot more forward momentum. So things that are related to you personally, yourself and your personal progress, maybe even your energy, as well as things that are related to career, are going to start to take off, because Jupiter will then move quite quickly into your fifth house by the 9th of June. So from the point that it is now, Jupiter was there, the 11th degree was there in July, mid-July. So the 15th of July until the 9th of October, Jupiter moved from 11 degrees to 21 degrees of your fourth house, of your home and foundation, your roots, your connection to your family of origin, your connection to what makes you feel stable. That can also be emotional, psychological foundation or stability. And now with Jupiter moving forward, you've understood something that already was underway in July that was shifting and changing. Now you've understood something and you're going back over it. So from the 30th of April, Jupiter then is clearing that zone from the 21st degree of your fourth house, Gemini, and it's going to move into new territory through May and into the 9th of June, when it finally moves into your fifth house to trine you. And Jupiter loves being in Cancer, so it's going to bring you really fantastic results from, particularly strongly from June of 2025 through to the end of June into July of 2026. So this is a great time to prepare that terrain, become more clear what you need to feel happy, how to deal with housing and home, and even that inner psychological feeling of home. family issues of any kind. And you'll find that as then Jupiter moves into the fifth, it's going to be a lot easier to be more relaxed and more open and carefree and creative because you've taken care of that foundational stuff. And then Uranus on the 30th of January, already stationed direct in your third house at this 23-degree point. And it was at that 23-degree point in May of 2024. And from May 2024 until the end of August and the beginning of September, it was moving forward till 27 degrees. Then it moved from the beginning of September all the way back to 23 degrees. So it covers this territory that it's already been through. And we're now going to go forward again to understand in this third house dynamic, which has a lot to do with understanding your local space, your connection to the people around you, your environment, perhaps languages, literally skills or other things that you need to develop to do the thing that you need to do, whether it be just literally getting along and living, or if it's for work. For example, third house can be connected to your entrepreneurial role and what you might be doing every day. This is also potentially with reference to teaching and learning. And so that can be also with reference to your goals and like immediate goals and willpower and how you use that. And so there's been a lot of needing to perhaps push yourself through things that may have felt a little bit wobbly, or maybe the dynamic around local space and neighbors, and this also involves siblings and extended family, has also been a little bit changeable, unreliable. So you're going to go back over something so it clarifies, and whatever might need to change, or if there's something that needs to be learned and a skill that needs to be developed, you will now move forward with more confidence around that. Yes, and also Venus is in your second house. It's moving back and forth since January, beginning of January, pretty much. Venus moved into your first house, and it goes back and forth between your second and first house from now until the 6th of June. So it's a big period of time where you're focusing on your money, your resources, what supports you, potentially your actual income or the money that you have, your valuables and your values as well. Venus does very well in your first house, not so well in the second. So there's this kind of a feeling of having to do things on, Venus is ruled by Mars in Aries. So in the second house, there's an independence around money that may not feel natural to Pisces, can feel frustrating. And so that might be, again, I'd need to see your natal chart to see how that affects you, but this can anyway be a road towards better income, or a road towards better ways of dealing with your own, abundance in general. But it might come at a price of waiting because of this retrograde movement. So Venus stations on the 1st of March. So that'll be around some of your birthdays. It's my solar return, by the way. I have stellium in Pisces. And so on the 1st of March, Venus stations at 10 degrees 50 minutes. That's also, by the way, on my midheaven. So watch this space. And that's something that Venus does every 8 years. So go back again in 8-year increments, 2017, 2009, 2008, etc. I've done another video about that, so you can see more. But this will have a resounding effect on your money and how that shows up in your life, or your whatever you need to feel supported, and how you might reach into that. What else is this? Chiron is being squared by Mars, and that square holds for quite some time. Mars is in the 5th house, which is also about relationships. So September and October, Mars went through the 5th house, which is about love affairs. It's about children. It's about your personal projects of creative nature or some kind of entrepreneurial nature. It's about gambling or taking risks in some way. And Mars rules your second house of money and your values and family and so on. So any of those dynamics might apply. But then Mars came back into your 5th house after it retrograded from the 6th house of your work. So from November, December, and into the 6th of January, Mars was in your sixth house, just into the sixth degree. And then on the 6th of December, lots of sixes there. On the 6th of December, Mars retrograded at 6 degrees of Leo. And then finally on the 6th of January, moved back into your fifth house. So there's been something that you've been grappling with about your everyday life that might have to do also with a relationship, a love relationship, or a dynamic around how you want to express your life, your joy, yourself, maybe connecting again with children, something to do with children, how that dynamic is working out. It might be about them dealing with their own lives, but that causes you some kind of tension with them, or that they are experiencing tension and you might need to get involved in that. I'd have to see your chart to know that for sure. But it's in a square to this Chiron that has been in your second house of money and your values and what you possess. And that has been since May of 2018. So there's been now this friction, let's say the square, where Mars is ruling that second house, of course, from the fifth. And there's a recognition here where you may have been undermining yourself. So Mars is kind of like, no, you got to show up in a different way. You've got to be yourself in a different way, or you've got to take new risks to accomplish the thing that you want that has to do with the second house of money. Anything to do with a feeling of lacking self-worth. So Chiron in Aries has something to do with self-doubt, lacking a confidence in yourself based on often if you're natally that in terms of childhood, but even as it's transiting there, that can show up in different ways where there's a doubt, where there's a need to grow in confidence, and Mars squaring that will pull your socks up. And so that can be a real opportunity through February and March, because that holds the square pretty much as Mars is stationing on the 23rd into the 24th as like an overnight station, stationing direct universal time at the 17th degree, so only 2 degrees away from where it is. So basically all of February, Mars is barely covering 2 degrees. And it holds this square to Chiron, which anyway moves very slowly. So there's a lot of healing here. Now, Jupiter, your ruler in the fourth, is being trined by Mercury in the 12th, and that's very deep insight potentially coming from your unconscious mind or the spirit realms or relationships with people at a distance, or spiritual understanding in general. You've got Pluto moving into that 12th house, so that those things are going to be transformed profoundly. Pluto in the 12th can be extremely impactful in terms of your connection to the world behind your eyes, or the spiritual realms, or again, foreigners, foreign lands, and so on. And that trine from Mercury is very deep insight. Mercury rules your fourth house. It rules that Jupiter. So there can also be some new revelations through this week, because it's not just happening on the fourth, but it's really, this is a new dynamic around this very, very important week, where something new is being revealed to you that might be out of the blue, or it might be a deep insight through a dream, or some awareness of something that just comes to mind from I don't know, could be a person from far away, or a pattern of connection with ancestors. Because this is 12th house, 4th house stuff, that's family lineage, family who's far away, or spiritual family, people you maybe never have met. Right, I think I've covered everything, pretty sure. I'll be back anyway to talk more about each of these unique things as we go forward, because as you can hear, there's a lot of dynamism. If you've made it this far, then thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.